Hello, everyone. Welcome to Telling Tales. I'm Matt. I'm your game master for the evening, and we're playing Symbaroum, as always, on a Wednesday. The wonderful dark fantasy system from Fria Ligan. And it was a bit dramatic last week. We had the ending of one arc, and now we're starting another, or rather a kind of interlude between arcs. But still, adventure awaits. In all its multifaceted horrors. Before we go any further, I'd like to introduce our stream manager. As he stream manages every week, it's John. Hey, John.
Hello.
I like that. The kind of you made it look quite sci-fi, like.
That's what I was aiming for, and I definitely didn't just forget about.
Well, it really helped the mood. So, John's going to be sitting in the background, flinging cams around the screen, throwing images up, wielding the ban hammer in chat, all those delightful things. And he's very good at it, and we thank him for it. And now could he go, please? Evidently not. There we go. Wonderful. So before we start, I've got blurb to do. There are links down below to our social media, which is usually, but not always, Telling Tales RP, to our YouTube, where all of the VODs of our series Up to Date are stored, to our Patreon. Hey, supporters, if you feel like doing so. We run another weekly series on Tuesdays at 8 o'clock GMT. That's Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition. And we also run monthly one-shots, which started this very month with the Alien RPG we did, a full 6-hour session. And very good it was, too. I believe the VOD is still here on Twitch. It'll be winging its way into the ether in the next few days, but it's already in an episodic format up on our YouTube. So check that out if that seems like it might interest you. Good. That's everything. Wonderful. So let's bring on the players one by one. All three of them. Spoilers if you didn't see last week. Let's bring on Chris first. Hello, Chris. Chris plays Steo, our resident grump and town guard and mercenary and former soldier against horrific dark forces. And Steo's probably feeling a little bit rough after last week. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, or in his element, depending on if you want to take a positive spin on how trauma affects a soldier. But last week we were in the Tomb of Dying Dreams at the Ancient King's tomb. I had just stolen his very nice polearm, but then we had uncorked the vile water, summoned forth a being of unimaginable darkness, and Ephanea killed him, or at least disrupted said god, long enough for us to make a dive for some of the treasure in the treasure room, just before the entire temple began collapsing around us. So we left, hopefully back out the way we came, until we discovered that the door had been locked or closed. By a Darko who is gonna get killed soon. And then we discovered that we had to go out the other exit. And then we discovered the Maiden of Thorns, the Queen of Thorns.
The Thorn Queen. There were multiple kind of godlike beings vying for this vile water. And finally you got to meet the Thorn Queen, the third one of them.
Who was just a lot of danger in one confined space, and fortunately was distracted by a fight with the reconstituted being of absolute darkness, and was distracted long enough for us to dive into a large chasm in the far end of one of the rooms, which led us to the depths.
And I was not entirely paying attention during that, Chris, because I was doing small tasks here. So I may have missed. You did mention Ephanea sacrificing her life so you could escape.
Oh no, I completely forgot that absolutely heartbreaking moment. I don't know. There was a lot going on.
There was a lot going on, and who can remember every little detail?
Only my adopted daughter figure. Anyway, dead now. I got a big chest full of coins. Let's move on. Come on, we can't dwell on it.
So yeah, when fleeing from the creeping darkness, as the tomb started collapsing, Ephenea held up some pillars to allow you to escape, and then the roof caved in on top of her, leaving her. Well, her fate's. I mean, it is explicitly, literally unknown, but realistically, doesn't look good. Doesn't look good. So then, as you said, you escaped into the underworld, the system of caverns and caves and passageways beneath Davokar. And let's bring on our second player, Sam, who plays Askarai, our Changeling Ranger. Changeling, I'm bringing. Oh no, I just said Changeling. That doesn't do it. The Rangeling. I'm bringing it back. I'm bringing it back.
What I am, Matt. That's just.
See, okay, so that's one mistake apiece. One for me, one for Chris. So now Sam and Mike could do it. But yeah, Sam, tell us what happened in the underworld.
So things were still bad. So we were running pretty fast through this underworld. It's something we'd heard about from Zanatha, so we knew it kind of led to the sinkhole if we could find the right way. We traveled for days. We think we weren't really sure. Fons had his ideas and we disagreed a little bit. At some point, we came across a kind of underwater lake that seemed to have something very dangerous in it. We fortunately.
I hate to interrupt, but while I'm sure there are underwater lakes, you may have meant underground.
True.
There's Sam's.
I'm taking my free mistake. I got to take it, although I'll forget I have it.
Look, yours is the least embarrassing of all of us so far. So
yeah, an underground lake, which did appear to have something very dangerous and even more dangerous than an underwater lake. We kind of skirted around the edge of that. Luckily, carried on traveling for ages and ages. Eventually, we found a group of meerkats who were feasting on some kind of dead reptile, and we more or less snuck for a given meeting for Stio and Anton, I think.
Yes.
And then after, at this point, Stio realized that we were going wrong and how we had gone wrong, thanks to a very nice roll, and pointed us in the right direction, which eventually led us to the bottom of this sinkhole at long last.
And out into daylight, as grim as daylight is in Davokar in winter. Yeah, he had a bit of a Gandalf moment, which does help. Although I don't think Gandalf actually rolled dice, but you know, we'll see. So we bring on the third and final member of our party. Not well. I mean, Chris doesn't care, but let's bring on Mike, who plays Antom, our Theurg, priest of Prios, an all-round utility guy. So, how did the story last weekend? Mike?
So we emerged into the sinkhole. Had a sort of like a bit of a discussion about whether we were going to show our faces to Zanatha and tell her what had happened. But thankfully that decision was made for us because she wasn't actually in. So yeah, we then decided to make our way straight back to the Ordo Magica outpost along the banks of the river. And when there we go. And yeah, when we got there, it transpired that our two Ordo Magica friends, Plendel and Marla, had disappeared, taken off, and they'd taken the one remaining canoe or boat with them as well. And they left a note to explain that they had no other choice. So we are essentially kind of stuck with
Stranded.
Yeah, pretty much.
Abandoned in the middle of Davokar. In the middle of winter. Yeah, it's all good. It's all good stuff. So an upbeat ending to our Copper Crown trilogy. But don't worry, we're going to keep up that happy pace. And we'll pick up not exactly where we left off. We'll pick up a day later. So offline, these guys have had a little discussion about what the characters would do next. And if you know what, let's pop up a map. Let's pop up the map. I can see John's got it ready already. There we go. So you can see where the ruins were there. The Tomb of Dying Dreams is where that ruins label was. And the party had a discussion about basically where to go to try and get out of Davokar as quickly as possible. And the idea of just traveling west along the riverbank was put forward. But in the end, what they went for is almost directly north from the Tomb of Dying Dreams is a ruin called the Sun Temple, which, as all the players, the players know, but the characters know well, is an old ruined temple to the sun that has been reclaimed by the Church of Prios. Prios is a sun god. And there is quite a lot of travel between the Sun Temple and Karvosti, the spiritual home of the barbarian clans. It's probably the safest route in all of Davokar, realistically. And Askarai proposed that they strike north, cross the river, and try and get to the Sun Temple. It extends the journey, but crucially, it makes a great deal of the journey perhaps safer than it would have been otherwise. So, yeah, and that's where we pick up, and we pick up a day later as well. And let's have a quick look. How are we doing for health and stuff, for toughness? Is anyone still particularly beaten from the happenstances at the tomb?
I'm fine at this point, I think.
I'm fine.
I'm actually full health.
Okay, then we don't need to have a look at toughness and healing and things like that. You would have, you can recover 1 point of toughness a day, and you don't have to do it while resting either. You can do kind of mild tasks. Like there's a description when it talks about how far you can travel of just normal traveling is fine. It's when you try force marching or the wonderfully titled rule death marching that's that you start to hit problems. So you've struck north. I'm going to assume that you're following the southern bank of the Malgamore again and kind of working your way like kind of almost directly northeast-ish to kind of get yourself more flush with where you can cross to the Sun Temple, and perhaps hoping that there is some kind of crossing up there closer to the Sun Temple itself. Because where you are now, there certainly isn't. You've been traveling for a day or so. You made camp. I'd imagine you made camp overnight at the outpost and then have struck out during the day. And again, you made camp further up the river, kept watch, tried to keep yourself safe. So far, nothing has leapt from the boughs of Davokar to strike at you. I'm sure that good luck will continue. But the next morning, you rouse yourselves. Of course, you're accompanied, I should say, as well, for any newcomers out there. You're accompanied by the goblin warrior Urfons, who is your compatriot in arms from the Fortune Hunters Guild, kind of boss in some ways. And you strike out again up the river. And at that point, I think we'll start this game, and why not, by asking, who's in front? Who is scouting at the front of your group? Who's kind of like, who's the pathfinder?
Probably Askarai. Normally.
I would also imagine it to be Askarai. So, Askarai, can you give me a vigilant roll, please? And you know what? You can make it at a +1.
Okay, nice. I will need a 16. I got a 10.
Okay. Ahead of you, along the riverbank, you hear some kind of splashing noises. You hear kind of you can hear some grumbling as if people talking quite lowly. And as you take just a couple of steps forward through the trees ahead of you, even though it's the dead of winter in Davokar, many of the trees are still kind of in bloom here, as it were. There's still plenty of space between, plenty of occupied greenery between you and whoever it is. But you do catch some glimpses of what appears to be a completely naked barbarian man, hanging sopping wet clothes up on some tree branches.
Okay.
A very large naked barbarian man and very heavily muscled.
Does he appear to be alone?
He does at first glance. But are you kind of hanging out to try and see more?
I will
so to
definitely.
speak.
I'll definitely stop where I am and look, and also wait for the party to catch up with me and kind of signal them quiet and
Sure.
take over.
Let's make a check to see if Steo and Anton pick up on your gestures before they get to you. So they can make a roll, and you can make it against either vigilant or discreet. It's your choice. And you can make a roll to see whether you catch and see Askarai's gesture in time. Because I'm guessing Askarai isn't too far ahead of you. So we'll make those rolls.
Not a chance.
I made it. Okay. I got 2.
Anton, you see that gesture, and however Anton engages stealth mode, that's how you do. Steo, on the other hand, I mean, how would you react? In my head, Steo just goes, "What?" Misunderstanding the gesture of the ranger. But how does Steo play it?
I don't think Steo even notices. He's not quite whistling while he works, but he's probably just opposite direction, distracted.
Sure. So, would you say it's fair that Steo even just walks past Askarai?
He will definitely be on route to walk straight past him. Yeah.
Sure. Steo's lost in his own world and just walks past the group. Steo, whirling round to face you, is a fully naked, heavily muscled barbarian man. He reaches back, grabs an enormous battle axe, a huge 2-handed battle axe, and kind of swings it up ready and just stands there facing you, gently dripping onto the forest floor.
Just like, peace. No trouble here.
You hear some splashing from over on the riverbank, and you can turn and see that 2 more figures are kind of clambering out of the river. What looks like another kind of barbarian warrior, and someone who is wearing a woman in more ranger's gear. You can see that as she swam across, she kind of held a bow up to avoid getting the string soaked, and they both kind of clamber up and kind of ready themselves. They're not about to attack, but they definitely ready themselves. Askarai, Anton, what are you doing at this point?
I think I'd probably move forward to join Steo, just so he doesn't get kind of jumped on his own, if that were their intention. But seems like we might be okay.
Do you think I'll just come up and say, yeah, we're not here for any trouble. We're passing through. We will be on your out of your way soon. We're just looking for a means to cross this river.
They kind of all look at each other, and the naked one with the huge axe, in a very kind of heavily accented Odav voice, says, "You going north?"
Aye.
Going north.
He looks round at the others and say, "They do not know what is north."
Is there trouble?
The woman who seems to be a ranger kind of pulls back her hood, and you can see kind of her hair is sort of about shoulder length and dark in more of an Ambrian style, and she says, "Aye, you could say that." She spits out some river water.
Oh, just what we needed.
We were headed to the Sun Temple. Is there some problem?
The naked one kind of lets out a harsh barking laugh and says, "Ha! Yes, Sun Temple trouble. That is it." The woman says, "There's well, it's close to open warfare."
Fighting between which parties?
The Queen's forces and some barbarian rebellion. The two barbarians kind of roll their eyes slightly at being termed barbarians. Yes, some which The Green Woman, they call her.
That rings a bell. Remember that evening with the Queen's Guard on the way out?
You do indeed remember that on your way to the Tomb of Dying Dreams. They said that there was some trouble with a local young witch stirring up rebellion, and they were... That's partly why they were out in force. It appears the situation has gotten a lot worse.
And that's close to here, you say?
The woman nods and says, yes, the Sun Temple is, well, siege is a hard word, but it's not far off it. And there's a legion or so moving up the path from Carvosti. Friends, I wouldn't be moving towards that if I were you. Not unless you want to either get press-ganged or caught up in hostilities.
And you three, where are you headed?
They kind of share a look at each other. There's silence rings out for a good 10 or so seconds before the younger barbarian warrior, who's kind of not as heavily muscled as the older one, but still, kind of fairly well built, but quite youthful in the face, and with a flowing locks of bright red hair. When he kind of got out of the river, he unslung an axe and a shield, but now they're kind of like he's in the middle of slinging them back on, and he shrugs and says, "You said we could always use more blades." The naked one goes, and they kind of go silent again. The woman shrugs, slings her bow, and says, well, in any case, I am Relnara. We might at least see if we have any goods to trade.
Oh, sure. I honestly, I'm going to just sit down on the what passes for the riverbank here and just kind of take some of the weight off my my feet. It's like the only thing that's really worth trading in this place is safety, and we are fresh out of that.
The younger barbarian says, "You see, they may wish to." He looks kind of slightly cowed by the older man, but still clearly thinks he's onto a good thing.
Well, fair warning to you. I would say heading south is no safer than heading north from here. We've had our fair share of troubles. That's why we're heading up to the Sun Temple.
The older man, who now he's kind of pulling the sopping wet clothing back on him, and he kind of has long braided dark hair and a big braided beard almost down to his belly, and he says, "Trouble everywhere in Forest."
That's true. Some places worse than others, and we've had about the worst of it.
This trouble was so great that it escaped the forest and then came back.
They kind of share a look again, and the younger warrior just kind of quickly leans forward as like they've started kind of like getting their packs like slightly unpacked and stuff, kind of rooting through them, checking them for kind of damp and the like, when he kind of leans forward and says, "Look, we've heard of what might be a really good opportunity." The older man just goes like a grand over dramatic gesture and mutters something in Odav, which none of you speak. No, actually, you know what? Oh, that's one thing. We were doing a little bit of XP spending, I think, for us. Mike, had you spent that XP that we were discussing?
Yeah, I was wondering if there was going to be an opportunity for us to sort of weave that into the story. Like, it's definitely my next purchase.
I think Anton is most of the way there already with his training, and he's got the journals of the Ordo Magica now that he's like looked through, and I think we can safely we can safely make that purchase in story here. I think that's absolutely fine. So yeah, Anton now has novice level of lore master.
Nice.
So, which will be very handy, let me tell you, because the amount of times I've looked through the books and seen if they have lore master, they can know this. So you know what? Give me just give me a cunning roll.
Yeah, mechanic's not actually that great. I think I looked at this earlier. I failed, by the way. I needed 11 and I got 16. But I think with this, like, isn't it that you need to pass a cunning roll to like have a conversation with someone? But like for the odd word here or there, I think. Don't
like
that.
What I was asking, you know, he was speaking in Odav. Basically, I was seeing if you knew the exact graphic terminology he was swearing in, but like you don't pick up on it. So that it was just for fun and flavor. Yeah, the younger warrior starts to kind of like babble into his story, and Relnara cuts him off with a wave of her hand and says, "Fine. Look, my name is Relnara. This is Gadraban." She indicates the youthful redhead warrior, and this is Vikama, the man kind of still cursing and pulling on his wet clothes. We had heard of a claim being made to the south, a place called Cylindra's Hope. It's meant to have a lot of treasure, easy for the taking. Some kind of hill with sunken temples in Davakar are everywhere, are they not? But the point is, people are pulling goods just out from the earth. We were going to go there, see what we could do. It also moves us further away from the Green Woman's Rebellion, which I suggest is a strong choice for you as well. Askarai, can you give me a cunning roll, please?
Sure. What's my cunning?
And you know what? Take a +2 on it as well.
Okay. Under 12. I got 18.
Okay. You know what? Steo can roll it as well, but don't take that +2.
Cunning. My cunning is 11. I rolled a 16.
That's fine.
Sorry.
And Anton can have a go too, right?
No. There is a specific reason for that, though. It was kind of a Thistlehold based stuff, and Anton hasn't been in Thistlehold for as long.
It's fine. You didn't need to explain that. I've assumed there was a reason for it.
You knew that I was just picking on you. So, yeah. Relnara shrugs and says, "Look, it's up to you what you make of Cylindra's Hope, but we have to travel between the two southern rivers of Davakar now. And, it's not the most dangerous journey in the world that can be made under these trees, but it's not to be scoffed at either. If you wish, we can join forces, travel south to Irnor. From there, you can strike out to Thistlehold, through the forest, to Castor, along the river. However you want. Safety in numbers, yes?
Yeah, I mean, it's that, or at this stage, we go back to my plan of building a raft, and we've left all the good wood at that Prios forsaken hut. I think any friend's better than any enemy.
I mean, I'm not entirely sure that sailing anything flammable through the path of the Green Woman's Rebellion is altogether a great idea.
Yeah, I think this may be our best option. We can also help you to avoid the areas where you might find the most trouble if you're heading south.
Southeast, for sure. If this area of yours is nearby, that's rough. We can certainly try and avoid it.
I think that would be for the best.
Okay, Alistair will heave himself to his feet. And about face it is, then.
They nod and say, kind of give agreements. Vikama, the older, formerly naked warrior, well, we're all formerly naked, kind of steps forward and sort of insists on an Odav hand clasp with each of you, which is kind of like, forearm to forearm. The younger warrior rolls his eyes slightly at this.
I will accept his Odav handshake.
He even does so solemnly with Irfon's, even though his hand goes around Irfon's forearm. And he nods solemnly and steps back and says, "Yes, we have made pact on this. If you go back on it, I kill you with this." He hefts the large axe up.
Oh, you remind me of a dear friend recently departed. My name is Steo, ex of the King's Guard. This is my colleague Askrai and a man of Preos, Anton.
Irfon's is here too.
Oh, and of course our occasionally invisible goblin friend Irfon's.
They kind of all nod, kind of exchange pleasantries. They sort out their packs, make sure everything has kind of survived the crossing, throw away the occasional bit of food that looks like it's been ruined. They seem to be very well stocked, like very tightly, packed rucksacks full of the goods one might need on a journey of this kind. And everyone strikes off to the southeast. As you travel, Relnara informs you that the journey to Cylindra's Hope, unless you want to, basically they were intending on keeping up quite a hard march. But if any of your party are wounded or need a rest, they could relax a little, although it might make a difference of 3 or so days. She reckons that the journey to Cylindra's Hope is possible in 5.
I think the faster the better for us. We want to get out of here.
As long as we avoid the ruins and the Sun Temple.
Sure.
Yeah. Not the Sun Temple, sorry, the
Tomb of Dying Dreams. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you strike southeast from where you are, and you're fairly sure within a day or so, you're fairly sure you've skirted around that territory. In the distance as you traveled, do you remember I described a giant sort of pile of rocks that was visible towards the east from where you were? You see that in the distance to the west, so you're fairly sure you fully skirted around that area now and have kept going. And nothing in particular happens. The odd kind of unusual noise from the forest, but an unusual noise in Davakar is usual. You keep watch. The 3 of them seem to very much know where they're going, especially Relnara, who seems to be a very adept scout and seems to know the area relatively well, or at least to the direction in which she is going. She stops very frequently to kind of glance at where moss is growing on the side of trees. At night, she checks the stars regularly, and has some kind of like parchment map which she regularly references as well. So she very much seems to know what she's doing. And then the first kind of unusual happenstance that occurs is around midday on the second day of your travel. So you feel like you're well beyond the territory of the Tomb of Dying Dreams and those 3 horrific titans struggling over it now. You're walking forward through a kind of beaten kind of path, like a deer path or something like that. And it started snowing about an hour ago, which has obviously made your travel even more exciting. It's starting to settle mildly, but mostly it's just the annoyance of a slight extra chill as you walk, already kind of bundled up tight against the winter wind. When you all walk, more or less at the same time, into a very large clearing in Davakar. At the center of the clearing, and it reminds you a little bit of how the entrance of the Tomb of Dying Dreams looked, but much larger than that. There's a sort of huge slump in the earth, and then within that slump is a large, squarish structure, a ruin made of whitish blocked stone, and scattered around one side of it, the far side from where you are what look to be the remains of quite two. You'd estimate two quite old rotting wagons.
Wagons.
Going to watch to see what the foremost scout does and how they react to all of this.
Sure. Well, Rilnara was at the front, probably alongside Ascarai. As you've walked along Ascarai, you've realised that you're fairly sure you might even have bumped into Rilnara before. She is a scout for hire, like yourself, and seems to know this part of the forest well, and seems to know Thistlehold quite well. So you're sure you've probably crossed paths at some point, but never maybe particularly made an impression on each other.
Yeah.
She is kind of walking slowly towards the building, kind of bow unslung, like stopping every few steps and just pausing and waiting and listening. What are you doing, Ascarai?
I will follow suit also with my bow at the ready, not drawn, and also maybe take a look around the far edges of this clearing. Just
kind of do a big circle sort of thing.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. You manage to do like a full circle fairly quick. It's large, but you can travel it fairly fast. You don't really see anything else other than scattered sort of. There's a few what looks like, if you had to guess, scattered among the wagons and like basically the far side of this ruin from where you are seems to have had some kind of doorway that's partially collapsed on itself and is now just kind of white stone rubble. And you're fairly sure there's some bones scattered among both that doorway of rubble and the wagons. As these two are scouting forward, the two barbarian warriors, Gadraban and Vikama, who you have discovered while walking along. Vikama is Gadraban's uncle. And they've kind of like stalked forward and are kind of like standing near that rubbled entranceway. It's quite quiet, they've been quite discreet and quiet as well. And then they're kind of like examining it and looking at the wagons carefully, but not kind of touching anything or making any moves yet. Steo and Anton, what are you guys doing?
I'm following their lead, to be honest. Their cues. If they're not touching anything, I'm not touching anything. And yeah, I'm just sort of warily keeping an eye out. Probably keeping close to Vikama. Looks like he might be someone who could offer some protection should something bad happen. So,
yeah, I mean, if this guy can't offer protection, probably no one can. From what you've picked up, he seems to be a seasoned warrior. Either that, or a completely over the top braggart. But the other two very much seem to. He doesn't speak often, but when he does, the other two seem to listen to him.
So once Ascarai kind of settles down on his little circuit, I'm going to kind of catch up with him because there's no point in having ranged support if you don't have a tank in front of it. And I will have my brand new old spear out and ready to go.
Rilnara has kind of like, as I say, this building is in kind of a slump in the ground, and Rilnara kind of like does a little bit of a scramble down the side to that collapsed doorway and just kind of starts looking at it more carefully. Vikama comes down alongside her and kind of just starts kind of scraping away at the what soil and so on is between the collapsed stones.
Well, just say to them, is this something I don't imagine you knew this was here.
Rilnara shakes her head. Behind you, Gadraban is kind of like looking over the wagons and kind of kicks the wheel on one of them softly and says, Ambrian.
Brave team bringing wagons this deep into the forest.
He nods. Difficult. Must have been quite a few of them.
Didn't help them by the looks of things.
How long do you think it's been here?
Gadgeman kind of looks at it and says, I don't know your wood well enough.
What do you reckon, Asgard?
Anyone who wants to judge can give a cunning roll for it, and get a +1 if you're Ambrian, I guess, which would be Steo and Anton.
I'll take that
Don't
roll.
make it.
Yeah, I did it. Needed 12, got a 10.
You'd say these wagons have been here nearly a decade.
Oh, these are old. This is like 10 years back. This is like just after the walls got put up.
Maybe one of the first parties to venture in here, this part of Tabletop.
That would explain the wagons, foolhardy.
Vikama is kind of like nudging the stones on the doorway and goes, movable.
I am tired of sunken evil temples in the forest, but I am willing to help. There's not going to be anyone still alive in there if they've been here 10 years. But
Rolnara kind of looks around it and says, let's not be entirely hasty. Changeling, can you get up there with me? She's looking to kind of like try and scramble up the side of that, kind of onto the top flat surface of this sunken ruin.
I can try.
Okay. She, starts kind of scrambling to get on top of that. I can't remember if acrobatic stuff is quick or discreet.
I think it's quick.
I think it probably is quick, yeah. Do you want to give me a quick roll? I think it balances out because it's, your hands are cold from the snow, but also there's a lot of handholds in this.
I'll kind of offer Ascarai a leg up
like
if he
boost up.
feels. Yeah, boost up if he feels.
If you get a boost up, you can take +2 on the roll.
I will happily take a boost up, which means I'll need a 12. I got a 5. Nice.
Excellent. You have very little problems. You end up with very cold hands, but you manage to scramble to the top. Rolnara is already up there and kind of leans down and helps haul you up. The top is a relatively flat surface. It seems to have crumbled through at a few points. And as you come up to the surface, Rolnara kind of silently points at them as maybe to indicate where you can look in, or maybe as a warning to be careful around those areas.
I will look in, definitely.
Okay. You kind of stalk over to one of them and peer down. Give me a vigilant roll. I'll describe what you can see down there anyway, but I'll give you a bit extra if you make the vigilant roll.
Okay. I need a 15. I got a 10. So.
Okay. So down there seems to be mainly one large chamber with a number of dark passageways over on each side. The floor of the chamber appears to be partially collapsed, and scattered in any number of places you can see bones, kind of metal remnants, maybe weapons, maybe armor. It looks like quite a few people died down there. They don't seem to be any particular pattern or anything, though. You're not sure. Maybe it was the partial collapse that did it. You have no idea.
Okay. Well, it looks empty, but something happened here.
I'll actually throw a length of rope up to Ascarai and say, "Can you make that fast? Might be able to get more people up."
You could definitely, the ropes definitely wouldn't lead all the way down, like if you wanted to hang them down from those openings, because there's nothing fast enough to hold on to, and it's quite a distance. But you could certainly let a rope down and pinion it into one of the stones on the side to let people climb up to the roof, yeah.
I will do that, but I will also say I don't think we should all come up here. It's partially collapsed, but we should be all right. Just one or two.
Okay. Who else is going to go up there?
I'm not.
Did Sam? Did you mention there were people down there, or corpses or bones?
Probably not yet, but if I'm talking to you, I will say it's partially collapsed. There's a lot of what seem to be dead bodies, bones down there, but no sign of anything moving.
Yeah, let me take a look, see if I can. Maybe they were crushed. Maybe something ate them. Maybe both. I'll try and ratchet my way up the wall with the help of this rope.
Yeah, you can with the rope. You can get up there slowly and steadily and manage to get to the top. You can peer down through one of the gaps that's kind of Relnara's at a different one, kind of not wanting all the weight to be placed in one area. And you can peer down and you see exactly the same sight. With regards to finding, determining something about those bones, it's really too far a distance for you to be able to tell anything. The chamber is maybe 50 feet high, maybe more. It's a very large open chamber.
Is there anything in the chamber other than passageways leading off it?
You think there may be a sort of pit where it's partially collapsed near the center.
Okay.
Are there any signs that this has been raided in the last 10 years? Is there any more investigation to be done to determine things like that?
I think you could certainly make a vigilant roll to see whether Anton can pick up on anything like that. I think that's perfectly reasonable.
Watch me fail. Yeah, I succeed. Actually, I needed 13. I got 11.
And this is just fail. This is just down in the clearing and around the place.
Yeah,
right? Yeah. Well, you can't. You're not an expert in the way that Askarai is, but you can't see any footprints. You can't see any kind of disturbed. Everything seems quite pristine. Like most of the parts of the forest. So you can see no immediate signs of this, and clearly this doorway is collapsed some time ago because soil and material has kind of settled between the stones.
I'm going to decamp from the roof and go and look at the front where Gadraban was checking out the movable rocks.
Sure, I believe that was Vikama, but still,
sorry.
But Gadraban is probably down with him now. As you do so and kind of start clambering down, Relnara comes to the edge alongside you and glances down at Vikama and kind of nods. Vikama nods back and starts unpiling that doorway, kind of brushing earth and snow out of the way and pulling it to one side.
Lend a hand once I get there.
Gadraban is doing the same. Askarai and Anton, what are you two doing as this starts?
I think I will talk to Relnara and say, "You think it's safe? Not safe enough?"
She looks over at you and kind of, with a sly little smile, says, "What's safe?"
Fair enough.
You wouldn't be this far into Davakar if you weren't up for a little not safe.
That's true, although our party has had some bad recent experience with tombs of this kind, but I'm sure they'll be convinced.
And this time, you've got 2 axes and a bow with you, as well as your, no doubt, sturdy weapons.
That is true. Although it should be said, before we entered our last tomb, we also had another sword with us. Never left the tomb.
She nods and kind of drops down on one knee with her bow kind of out, kind of strung, just kind of basically going over that tree line with her eyes back and forth to just kind of watch over them as they're digging, and nods and says, "Davakar takes friends."
Yeah, too often. I will probably head down and help in what way I can, but leave the rope tied up here in case I want to come back up.
Sure. Anton, what are you getting up to?
I think I'm probably rooting around in my pack, maybe lighting torches if we're getting closer to being able to make our way inside.
Yeah.
Maybe helping out, moving some rocks and rubble out of the way. Just trying to be helpful.
I imagine what you do, it like rather than lighting the torches, maybe getting some dead wood from the forest edge and wrapping it with linen and soaking it in a bit of oil and stuff. But yeah, absolutely, you can get that done. And I think only 4 people can maybe gather around the entrance and do it, but you can definitely kind of move rocks that they've moved further away, if you make sense to them, make more room for them to shift the mass.
Actually, Anton, can you keep charge of these for me? I want to hand him the 2 vials of purple sap we'd recovered earlier, along with the recipe for creating more of the purple sap.
Yes. But, I mean, those things are probably best given to Anton rather than yourself anyway, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
What have we done with like the box? Did we have a chest of coins?
You have a chest of coins. It is safely stowed in Steo's backpack.
Okay. Yes.
Along with Ascarai, the cloak you located, and Anton, the codex you grabbed from the tomb. I'm assuming you won't want to try using them until they've been investigated a bit more. Copper crown, etc. But you can, if you want, if Ascarai, if you just want to whip that bad boy around your shoulders and just go to town with it, then you are welcome to.
I mean, probably not. Seems like I won't die just yet, maybe.
Sure. Let's see how the progress of shifting all these stones is going. Why doesn't everyone who's doing it give me a strong roll, please?
Oh, yes. I needed a 13. I got a 9.
Nice.
I need a 7, and I actually made it. I got a 4.
Oh, wow.
Progress is being made relatively quickly. The entranceway wasn't huge in itself. It was maybe a chamber about 7 feet high, kind of just slightly on the front of that larger chamber behind. And you're moving the stone and the soil and the snow out of the way relatively quickly. With a little bit more of a push, you'll definitely do it. You have to admit, even though you are feeling this labor, Vikama is a machine. He is kind of just, more or less tossing things that you'd have to heave up with both hands to one side, and kind of is definitely taking the lion's share of the work here and not complaining in the slightest about doing so. He has, in fact, kind of clearly your destiny is to see Vikama in various states of undress, because he's stripped his top off and now his kind of skin is steaming slightly in the snow that's coming down. Anton, you've managed to do all these things. Is there anything else you want to do while they're getting on with this task, or just still kind of helping them clear the space?
I think I'm just slightly conscious that perhaps everyone's focused on like clearing this out of the way, and not so many people are like keeping watch. So like, I'll be trying to like observe the areas that aren't being looked at by other members of the party.
Rilnara is kind of keeping watch from on top of the rooftop. If you want, because Anton seemed to not be up for the idea of going on the rooftop. So if you wanted a good, decent vantage point nearby, one of the wagons would do. You could stand up on one of the wagons and get a bit better look around you from there.
Yeah, I'll try that.
Okay. Kind of flail out, kind of like trying to boldly look around.
My long range flail.
Yeah. You can always throw it. Yeah, absolutely. Steo and Ascarai, why don't you give me another strong roll, please?
It's definitely pushing my strong luck.
Yeah, 5.
I got 11 out of 7.
Okay. With as all these stones and soil and debris are moved to one side, Steo, you see kind of one last large rock in the way, kind of kick it loose a bit and then heave it off to one side. And now basically in front of you seems to be a mostly collapsed but now accessible entrance to a first chamber. This first chamber seemed to have been, as I said, maybe about 7 feet in height, and maybe kind of like 15 by 15 in terms of sort of floor space. At the center of it appears to have been some kind of ancient constructed mechanism, which is now shattered and crushed against one side of the chamber. It seemed to have been made up of various odd kind of carved globes and the like, which are now scattered along the floor. Behind that seems to have been some kind of wall, again with a mechanism in it, because it's partly collapsed, and you can see the ancient like metallic workings in the grooves along either side. A wall that maybe came down or moved aside when the mechanism was tripped. And beyond that, you can see the chamber, huge and stretching out ahead of you. As I said, bones littering the floor, along with more debris, more rubble. And you can see fairly well in it because there's enough cracks in that roof that shafts of light are coming down and illuminating the entire space, with snow kind of gently drifting in and out of the light and shade from those shafts of Prios's light.
So I'd love to take a look at some of these remains. Like, are they crushed, or are they mauled, or what can I? Is there anything I can tell, given they're a decade old?
So who is stalking in straight away? It sounds like Steo is, and Gadraban and Vikama are kind of drawing their weapons and kind of pacing, like, you know, they would be either end of a shield wall if there were people between them. They're keeping very precise pace with each other and slowly, cautiously working their way forwards, kind of scanning around them with their weapons held ready. Steo, perhaps you are between them or alongside them. Anton, Askarai, what are you two doing?
Definitely going in last.
If Steo's heading straight in, I'll follow him in. Are there any like markings or symbols around the door or anything like that? Just
not that you can see. The only kind of markings and symbols that you can see were carved on these kind of stone and brass globes that are now scattered over to one side in the entrance chamber.
Okay.
I'll have a look at those when I go in.
Okay, sure. Well, you have Lawmaster now, so you can look at them. The writing on them is definitely Symbaric. They're pretty well damaged. So I'm going to ask for a cunning roll again to actually, but you can tell they're Symbaric, certainly, which the others couldn't from first glance.
I rolled a 3 and I needed 11, so that's
Excellent.
good.
You think it's a riddle. And it seems to be a riddle. You can't quite fully make it out, but it's a riddle alongside of the river flows, and the wind blows gently over it. It's that kind of little wordplay riddle, essentially. But you can't work out the fullness of it because the entire thing is scattered and dashed to one side. But clearly, perhaps you would suppose the mechanism had a riddle on it, and if spun in the correct place to answer the riddle, perhaps the doorway was opened.
I'm going to just call out to the party softly, but so I could be heard, that just be careful. There may be more mechanisms and traps than we can see in this place.
You can hear every so often kind of a little footfall on the roof. Rolnara has remained up there, and as the kind of sorry, Askarai, did you say you were going in but behind the three kind of frontline warriors? Yeah. The four of you who are in there then can occasionally see a shadow kind of drop over those shafts of light as Rolnara kind of paces to look down between with her drowborn, her bow drawn. So, Steo, you're now kind of among these bones. They're, I mean, the vast majority of them are definitely human. You see a number of weapons and bits of armor that suggest to you kind of very common Ambrian make, with some barbarian stuff scattered around as well. You kind of step over one individual who appears to have been kind of almost torn in half and dashed against a pillar. You step foot over another individual who most of the bones in their back and their sternum are crushed, and their pelvis and leg bones are tainted an odd green color. Ahead of you is like a crumbling pit that seems to lead kind of slightly gently down and then with a bit of a drop towards perhaps a chamber below, but without kind of like going, all the way to the edge and like peering over it and maybe even investigating it fully. You can't really see down like anything down there. Could you give me a vigilant roll, please, Stio?
Oh, a 1.
Nice.
Lovely. So, you notice 2 things. First off, among the human bones, there are a surprising number of what appear to be boar skulls. Secondly, by the individual who appears to have been dashed open and crushed against a pillar, you see tucked amongst their bones, somehow having escaped damage over however long it's been, like a rolled up scroll.
Yoink. But at this point, I would also like to kind of inform everyone else, lads, there's poison. There might be boars, and there might be something larger still that made attacks on these people. I'm not sure this was just a collapsing cave.
Ascarai, as you're pacing behind the others, you kind of like maybe flanking around to one side to get a better view on everything. You kind of walk past another skeleton kind of that appears to have it looks partly crushed, and if it's crumpled from a great height onto the floor, and it kind of is falling apart on the floor now with what is unmistakably an Ambrian crossbow next to it.
I will pick up the crossbow, take a look at it, but
Decent enough make. It's up to you whether you want to carry it. If anyone else just wants random swords and axes and stuff, there's plenty of those scattered around. I
want to go to Anton and go a little bit surreptitiously. What do you make of this? And hand him the scroll.
Oh, sorry. That was you noticing the scroll. So you are striding over and picking it up now, then?
Oh, is it in? Striding is the wrong word, but I would like to retreat in a careful
cautiously
manner.
Walking over. Okay. You reach among the bones and withdraw the scroll and turn with a gesture to Anton. And as you do, you're not sure of the source, but a noise starts in the chamber. A wheezing, whistling that slowly rises in pitch till it turns into a soft, low squeal. And among the bones, figures start to clamber to their feet. There are 3 of them. They look to be pretty big. Maybe they were once human. They're covered in blotches, freezing patches, decaying patches, bruises. Their hands partly torn apart, sharpened bones inserted into the holes where their fingers once were. And on their heads, they wear boar skulls, empty of flesh. To say they don't look happy that you're there, I think we can safely say we're immediately going into combat. They look, in a way, they're very bulky and tall. They don't quite look, the abominations, the Blightborn created by the Copper Crown. They don't look exactly like that. Not as huge, not as kind of rippling with muscle with those. But they're humans corrupted by the Dark of Davokar, by Blight, and they are about to attack you all without any shadow of a doubt. So I think we can go into. There we go. As I say, there are 3 of them. Let's kind of try and picture the layout in our heads a little bit. Okay, you've got this vast chamber. Further towards the front, on one side is let's say if you're looking from the front, on the left is Gadraban. On the right is Vikama. And more kind of backwards, back into the center, is Stio with Anton kind of not far behind him. Ascarai is over on, let's say, the right side, kind of further back from Vikama. And these 3 Blightborn have kind of picked themselves up. They're basically scattered all in between you. So if you want to attack the nearest one of them, just say so, and I'll assign them numbers, and we'll go on with that. So Askarai, what are you doing? I mean, maybe you want to stop and see if they're friendly, but these things have been horribly corrupted for a very long time.
I do
it's
not want to
obvious
see
to anyone looking.
I'm very happy to assume they're unfriendly.
That's safe.
Are there stairs like leading down into this room we're in?
No, not at all. The room is on the same level as that entrance room, but there's a slope leading up to the forest floor because the whole thing's sunken. But yes,
if I can, I'll back. Depending on where they are, I'll back away so that I feel I don't have anything behind me, and then I'm going to shoot at.
You can absolutely do that, and you've basically made it so everyone but Anton is closer to them than you are. So you're almost like backed into the right-hand corner near the entrance, kind of. Yeah.
Nice.
So go ahead and make a shot. Are you just shooting at the one nearest to you?
Yeah, I will shoot at whatever is nearest to me.
Well, the one nearest to you is definitely the one closest to, say, Stio. So
okay,
that seems like a good thing. So roll your attack, please, and their defense is +9.
+9.
Yeah. Okay. So you are hitting. It's just but you still have to roll, right? Because you might fumble the hit. So, which would still mean that you hit. They just get a free attack on you.
I rolled a 2, close, but not quite.
There we go. It's almost a 20, isn't it? It's halfway there. So, give me that damage roll, please.
Okay, that's 1d10. I got a 2.
Good start. Your arrow basically you were aiming for kind of one of the eye holes in those large boar skulls they're wearing, but instead it smashes through a tusk, which splinters and sprays over the room. But I mean, that doesn't seem to hurt it because evidently it's the boar skulls aren't part of them. That's a bad miss. Next, we have Relnara, who is going to shoot her bow from up above, and he's going to shoot them. Exactly the same Blightborn that you aimed at, Askarai, and her arrow kind of like just sticks into the upper layer of its muscle on one arm, and you can see that it didn't penetrate far. Something in these creatures' skin and flesh is unnaturally tough, and as you watch, you can see the shaft of the arrow start to bubble faintly and then snap off and drop to the floor, alongside a few drips of kind of horrible purplish black ichor.
That seems bad.
It does seem bad, doesn't it? Who we got next? Oh, we got all the NPCs going now. This is going to be great fun for the players. So Vikama is going to bellow at the top of his voice and dash towards the one nearest to him, who's kind of in the center of the room. And with a great swing of his axe, he kind of slams round and just buries it in the thing's chest. And you hear like horrible crunching of collarbone and ribs as he tears it out, and the thing kind of staggers backwards and kind of drops to one knee. The wound is terrible, but it's more or less been battered to the ground by Vikama's strength. So that one is quite badly wounded and is also knocked down. Then I guess we have Urfons, and I didn't say where Urfons was, did I? You know what? That's because Urfons was keeping watch at the door like a clever boy. And Urfons is now basically dashing into the room, and he's going to spend his actions kind of dashing up to be roughly just behind where Stio is. And then we've got Gadabran, who's going to engage the third one of them, who's over near him, and he's going to attack them with his axe, and he kind of leaps towards them as they reel round from their standing position towards him, slams his axe into its hip, which doesn't seem to do a terrible amount of damage, but he's definitely drawn blood. And then with all his weight, just kind of slams his shield straight into the thing's chest, and it doesn't move even in the slightest. And he backs away, kind of wide-eyed, readying his shield for the counter strike. Steo, what are you doing? The one that was wounded by Rolnara's arrow slightly is the closest one to you, and the two barbarians are each facing one of their own.
I'm going to be a little bit gamey and delay my action because it might allow me to get 2 attacks.
Because, of course, when it engages you, you get a lot of strike. That's absolutely fine. We will do that. So, Anton, what are you doing, friend? You're on mute.
Sorry. I'm rolling Holy Aura on the basis that I think these guys are undead or abominations.
I think that's a fairly good bet. Is that considering your horrible level of corruption?
That's sort of irrelevant, because if I start to worry about getting more corruption, I will not do anything for the remainder of this story.
Had we established that you got stigma from the last? I think.
Yeah, so I had like a kind of sunburn.
Yeah,
that was right. Yeah. But what is your corruption on at the moment? 4, like your permanent corruption. Yeah. And what's your corruption threshold?
7.
Okay, sure. Yes, sure. So go ahead and make your holy aura roll, please.
I make it.
Hey, there we go.
Nice.
So it affects everything within the area, doesn't it? Broadly speaking. And it
affects everything I can see. They take 1d4 of damage that ignores armor.
Sure.
Sorry, hang on. Did I say d4? I meant d8 of damage ignoring armor.
D8. Good lord.
Spicy.
That is spicy. So, what shall we? Well, first roll your temporary corruption, please.
Okay. 3.
Okay, which takes you to 7, I believe.
My temporary corruption is on 0.
But your permanent's 4, right?
Yeah. So am I back up?
Yeah,
to
I'm
7?
I'm afraid you add permanent to temporary corruption to determine your corruption level. So, you're going to get all corrupt again.
Do you have to cross your? You have to hit it or go over it?
I believe you just have to hit it. But I could be wrong. Let's have a quick double check.
John is saying hit it, unfortunately.
Since push goes, over its corruption threshold, it says.
Ooh.
I think.
Good.
Yeah. Yeah, because isn't basically what happens when you go over your corruption threshold that you John C's reached, so it is hit it apparently. Yeah, sorry. Isn't what happens that basically you immediately gain more permanent corruption as well?
I think so.
I believe it's incredibly brutal to that degree. When it reaches it, the character counts as blight marked and receives a permanent stigma. The stigma disappears if the permanent corruption is reduced to below the corruption threshold again. So it's not permanent then. But anyway. Permanent corruption is suffered when binding an artifact, learning a mystical power, or when the character's total corruption... Yeah, okay, yeah. So roll another d4.
Okay. 4.
Oh my god.
Okay, so your permanent corruption is now at 8.
I was looking in the rulebook for this, but what does this apart from getting the stigmas, what consequence does this have?
Crossing your corruption threshold, you immediately gain a d4 of permanent corruption.
Yeah, but no. What effect does having permanent corruption have apart from getting?
It raises your whatever your current corruption level is, because it basically raises your the bottom level of your corruption. So now
Sure.
the least corruption you can have right now is 8. And what is your full corruption threshold? So what's your, which is equal to, what is it, double your resolute or something?
I think it's just resolute.
Okay, 13.
Okay, yeah. So now with 8 permanent corruption, and sorry, how much? And 3, so you're at 11, right? Because
So I'm at 11 now.
4.
Yeah,
you're at 11. Okay, if you gain 2 more temporary or permanent corruption before that temporary corruption goes away, your character will become an abomination.
Okay, right.
But what happens now that he's always over his corruption threshold?
It's only when you reach it. So
Yeah,
he
but
needs to
that's what I
drop
mean.
again first.
Okay. So you don't have to worry about that at least.
Yeah,
Kind of.
you can't gain permanent corruption until you drop below, until your permanent corruption drops below 7 again. Does that make sense? But you can gain temporary corruption from using abilities.
So I'm gonna spend a point to re-roll that last roll, because
that's fine.
Insane. Because if so when I do my purging fire ritual, eventually to remove permanent corruption, I have to spend an XP there anyway. So I might as well spend it now to potentially reduce my permanent corruption by a bit anyway.
Yeah,
sure. I think it's worth noting as well that the Water of the Dusk, which I believe you have in a handily swiggable bottle, does remove 1 permanent corruption with each application.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, true. Well,
so
I'm gonna.
A possibility.
If it's okay with you, I'll re-roll that last dice, just like I did in the last session.
Spend an XP, yeah.
Sure. Okay, I roll
do you have
a 1
an
this
XP?
time.
Do you have an XP to do that with?
That's a good point.
I'm happy. You can spend the XP you gain, an XP you gain in this session to do it. That's fine.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I rolled a 1 that time.
That's much better. That's much better. So now your permanent corruption is now at 5, and your temporary brings you to 8 right now. So that still means you get a stigma. I don't see any reason not to just have that kind of horrible sunburn effect appear on you again. It's been so little time since it was last there that now kind of because it's meant to have gone. It will have gone away by now, actually, because your temporary corruption has moved below the threshold. I believe so. Although I'm trying to read these rules as it goes along. If permanent corruption is reduced to below the corruption threshold again, yes. So it was so that sunburn effect went away, but now it's back. There we go.
Oof.
Who'd be a mystic in Symbaroum, eh?
Sorry for massively interrupting that combat session.
That's all right.
So in my D8 roll for the damage, I rolled a 7.
Ooh.
Okay. On the first one of them.
Sure.
And then roll for the next one.
3.
Okay, and the third one.
2.
And no one has
any damage.
To heal, so that's fine. Essentially, as Anton prays desperately there, a wave of heat and light flows out from him across the chamber, blistering and rotting away at the flesh of these things, and kind of a wave of steam as well breaks out as the snow falling through those gaps above kind of all hisses and evaporates as it hits the aura. Anton, you definitely feel like you're burning. It might be burning in Prios holy light, but you did something to yourself in the Tomb of Dying Dreams when you did this, and now it's happening again, and you can just feel yourself on fire essentially, and it's probably not an entirely pleasant sensation. I'm not hinting at any mechanics we're not talking about, just the corruption, etc.
Sure.
So we now have the Blightborn. All of them survived that, although they all seem to have been quite badly wounded by it. The one knocked down by Vikama in particular looks to be kind of struggling to get back to its feet. The one nearest Steo is going to round on you and dash towards you, giving you an opportunity for that tasty free attack with your spear.
Have at him. Yes, I pass because it's like +9.
Yes. So yeah, don't forget the new rules for your spear, for the king's spear.
Yep, 1d10. Yes, 1d10 +1.
Yeah, is that precise? That keyword?
No, that is deep impact. Precise was an extra point on my to hit roll, which in this one scenario is
Doesn't
good as
matter.
pointless.
yeah, sure. So give me that damage roll, friend.
That is a 6 in total. 5 +
That's
1.
6. Okay, nice. As it comes towards you, you kind of swing your back foot around as you're trained to do, jab out with your spear, and it gores through the thing's throat. As it does so, that horrible purplish black ichor sprays out over the front of you. Give me an armor roll, please.
Yes, sir. I make it. I needed a 12. I got an 11.
Yeah, it spatters over your armor, and your armor kind of starts vaguely corroding. It's eating away at the patina of it, but your armor certainly seems to be holding for now.
Wait,
yeah,
was that
and
not to was that a defense roll? As
Yeah.
opposed to armor? I don't know what.
oh no, he should get he should have got a defense test as well
Okay.
before the armor roll, but it doesn't matter because it didn't go through the armor anyway, so that's fine.
Sorry, I had just assumed roll the one against the armor.
No, yeah, that's fair. So, what was I going to say? Steo, now you got your actual action.
Have at him again, although I am very concerned about this Bernie Purple death. Again, no problems with hitting him. I rolled a 5. I needed like anything except a 20.
Mm-hmm.
And the actual damage is 7 + 1, which is 8.
So that's 8 damage. That is more than enough, Steo. It's coming for you with its throat is hanging out. It's got the arrow in it, and it's blistering and burning from Antom's holy incantation. You take another step back as it kind of slobbers and screams and squeals, swinging for you. You take a step back, brace your spear against the floor, thrust upwards, point through the jaw, through the back of the head, through the back of the boar's skull, and the creature just sags, and you swiftly step to one side before it breaks the spear by collapsing.
Dispatched.
Nice.
1 down. And back to the beginning. Askarai, what are you doing?
I'm gonna shoot at the one fighting Gadabran.
Gadabran.
Yeah.
Gadraban. Gadraban.
He seems like
that R needs to move back a little bit, John.
more in need of help than Vikama, so I will shoot at
Yes, definitely. So yeah, go for it.
that. Okay. I did not get a 20 or a 1, so
just
normal.
a standard. Yeah.
Normal damaging. I got a 1 on my damage.
Classic Askarai. So yeah, this arrow, it basically snaps as soon as it hits the skull. You're not having terribly good luck against these things. Who knew that big old pig bones would be such effective armor?
I blame the arrow. Must have been a faulty one.
You may well. So we've got Rolnara, who's going to shoot an arrow at the one fighting Gadraban, because she has evidently come to the same conclusion you have, that it seems if something's fighting Vikama, it's probably not worth trying to help. We then have Vikama, who this thing's kind of struggling to get up off the floor where he cracked it down to its feet. It actually occurs to me we didn't give the Blightborn who weren't facing Steo their action. So I'll just quickly do that now. They'll get to go now. The Blightborn facing Vikama is going to struggle back to its feet, and the Blightborn facing Gadraban is going to strike Gadraban Yes, he's going to strike Gadraban, and he's going to do so heftily, I think. Yes. No? What am I looking at? I have my kind of damage calculations for NPCs here, and I'm mildly worried that I... No, yes, I get it. I get it. It's all good. Yes. Okay. So, those two Blightborn who didn't get their action, the one fighting Vikama struggles back to its feet. The one fighting Gadraban reaches out with those bone talons implanted into its hand, wrenches aside his shield, strikes deep and strikes hard. You can see that part of Gadraban's quite light armor is rent open and a great mass of blood is flowing down his chest. And he struggles backwards and collapses to the floor just with enough enough of his, senses and his instincts still working to heave that shield over in front of him and kind of basically hide behind it on the floor with the axe ready to feverishly smack out at this Blightborn. But it's safe to say he's in trouble. So next we have Vikama, who is just going to take a pace backwards as this thing gets to his feet, measures his blow, and strikes its head off his shoulders with one swing of his axe and a satisfied grunt. Urfons, meanwhile, reaches where you are, Steo, and goes, Fria's teeth, and scampers towards one of those side passageways where you can see a figure shambling quickly out of the darkness.
Good eyes on that goblin.
You can't really see what he's doing in there, but you can hear kind of like the sound of Urfon's fighting, of his feet skipping on the floor and his huge silvery longsword sweeping round in great arcs and occasionally clanging against something that sounds maybe fabric, maybe metal, but also definitely fleshy. Next, we have Gadraban. Gadraban is basically going to be attempting to scrabble away from the thing and kind of trying to effectively disengage from it, but he's really being unsuccessful in doing so. He's just kind of like pushing himself back along the floor, hiding behind his shield. Yes. Not out of range of it by any stretch of the imagination. Anton, I believe that you make another resolute roll here. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think it's until I fail the resolute test or I break concentration. So,
yeah, ongoing effect. Until the character fails a specific test described. The test is repeated every turn on the character's initiative.
Yeah. And I rolled a 7, so I can continue
so
with that.
It's still in effect. So why don't you give me... let's have the rolls for the two of the Blightborn in the room, because you can see them.
2 6s.
2 6s. Oh, no, there's only one of them, isn't there? Because Vikama killed the other one. The third Blightborn, the one kind of looming over Gadraban, reaches its talons back for the killing blow, and then with a hissing squeal, sinks to the floor to one side of him, and he kind of desperately batters it away, and it rolls to one side, sort of smoking, with bits of its flesh charred and sloughing off onto the floor. Also, he'll get a bit healed by you, right?
Yeah, 1d4.
1d4. Do you want to give me a roll for that?
2.
Okay. And then, do you need to be actually concentrating for this?
Yeah, I think it needs to be within sight. That's the sort of
it says you have to make the check, and then it's if you break concentration, which is if you're suffering damage You have to make a resolute roll against the damage. I don't see anything there that suggests you can't act while you're doing it as well. So go ahead. What are you going to do?
So is there one near me that needs finishing off, or are they?
The ones in the chamber, you can't see any more in the chamber, but you can see that Earthons has kind of dashed down a side passage, and that there are sounds of conflict coming from down there.
I'll sort of dash over in that direction then. Probably carrying my torch in one hand, my flail in the other, and if I can sort of peer down that passageway, then maybe I can get another abomination within sight.
Sure. You can see ahead of you down the passageway again. Earthons is fighting in that style of his, kind of spinning in the air, kicking himself off the narrow walls of the passageway, turning it into just a narrow field of slashing, sharpened steel as he's dancing towards this creature, which was running at him down the passageway and is now kind of backing off slightly, like little cuts all over the front of it as it's trying to get to grips with him. You don't think you can engage the thing in melee while Earthons is there, partly because he's a dangerous guy to be fighting next to, but also the passageway is pretty narrow. It's basically the width of a human's shoulders, so not so much. But you can hear more scrabbling noises from the next passageway along. Okay,
if I can, I'll look down there as well.
Absolutely. There is definitely another one of them coming out of there, screaming and hissing. The light, as it's kind of penetrating slightly down this side passageway, glinting off the bone white skull it's wearing on its head. I wouldn't say you can get to it to attack it, but it's you're nearby and we'll be able to next time.
Sure.
Although, speaking of which, it's their turn. So the Blightborn is going to try and get an attack in on Earthons, which I don't think I necessarily calculated, but that's fine. That's fine. We'll just do that. And no one's particularly looking down that side passage, but you can hear the sounds of conflict continuing. One Blightborn is going to burst out of a side passage ahead of Anton, but not with enough movement to actually carry out an action. And over on the other side, I guess nearest to Gadraban and Steo, another one comes out, squealing and stamping its feet. Yes, Steo.
Gadraban still is in a bit of a state, I imagine. 1d4 is not.
He seems to be kind of like tired and getting back to his feet. You can see from here that the blood flow is slowing, presumably thanks to the efficacy of Antom's prayers. But he's still kind of sprawled on the floor and kind of slowly picking himself up.
I would like to go and get him to his feet and try and do a medicus roll on him.
Absolutely, yeah. I think you're close enough. I don't know. Can we do a medicus roll in one action, just in the middle of combat?
I think so. Let me actually check.
It strikes me as the kind of thing that you'd need time to do. But why don't you have a look there?
It doesn't say. Can only be used once per patient and day. That is the only mechanism there.
It says a combat action can be an ability. Sure. Okay. Then go ahead and make your medicus roll on him.
So the first roll I need to make is a cunning roll, which is obviously a little tricky. And I would say you can't. Actually,
the only thing I would say is you can't. I would say you can't haul him to his feet and do a medicus at the same time.
Okay, so I think it's more important. I think it's more important. I mean, you can tell me that's bad play now that I've made the bad roll, but Steel thinks it's more important he's on his feet than he is 1d4 more healthy.
I think that's fair. He's trying to get to his feet, so I won't make you make a strong roll for it or anything. You get over at him and kind of heave him up to his feet. Do you say anything as you do so?
Yeah, it's like can I make a roll for a quippy one-liner?
You can just do a quippy one-liner if you want, but
it's so difficult though. Come on, lad, trouble's not done yet.
He kind of looks at you kind of wide-eyed, and it strikes you just how young Gadraban is.
War is hell.
Just a young, naive barbarian warrior with long red hair. just in case I had to hammer it home any further. So, by the way, while I'm breaking the fourth wall a little bit like that, just while we're here and we're in between combat rounds, I for sure am aware that at least one of you has cottoned on to something here. Is it safe to say that we all have? Is this place familiar at all?
Yeah, the boar friends are familiar.
They are, aren't they? They are. I hope everyone out there has watched the prologue. So, we're back round to the beginning. Ascarai, you can't see down the corridor where Urfons is fighting one of them. You are aware of it because you can hear him. You can see that one of them has dashed out of a side corridor ahead of Anton, and you can see that one has dashed out on the other side of the chamber near to Steo and Gadraban. What are you doing?
I'll probably maybe reposition slightly now that the first few in this chamber have gone down. I know that maybe more in the middle of the chamber is safe. And then I'm going to shoot at the one that's come out near Anton, I think.
Sure. So yeah, the safest place in the chamber now is probably the center of it.
Yeah.
As you kind of got blades around you, in a way, spread out very widely. So yeah, go ahead and give me the attack roll for that.
Okay. No 20s, please. I got a 1. Yay.
Hey. So that's is that plus 4, plus 3? Perfect hit. Plus 1d6 to the damage. So nice.
Very nice. Okay, so that's now a d10 and a d6. Surely I can do some damage with this.
Gets a 2.
I got 10 and 5. 15.
15? Wow. So the one dashing out ahead of you, Anton, it rounds on you kind of... you can see like the milky, rheumatic eyes madly blinking at you from the holes in the boar skull, and it lurches forward with a snorting snarl. And as it does so, you can't see one of those eyes anymore because there's an arrow embedded up to the fletching in it. It reels back for a moment, gives out a kind of final snort and a swing, and then just full-length face plants in front of you and crashes on the floor, one tusk shattering and showering fragments over your robes.
Have I got time to like look over my shoulder and like kind of raise an eyebrow at Ascarai doing that?
I think you do, but also I'm going to say, because I'm pretty sure you two are kind of engaged with each other, and I'm feeling mean, so I'm going to make you roll a defense roll to avoid the spray of acidic blood.
Oh no!
So give me a defense roll.
Ascarai, what have you done? I don't make it. I rolled 18.
Okay, then give me an armor roll, please.
Typical that my best hit is going to end up.
This kills me. 1.
Okay. The spray of ichor from the skull of the thing kind of spatters over your cheek and your neck, and you can feel them instantly, get even through the kind of sunburned surface, getting oddly sore, and a horrific sweet smell assails your nostrils. Your face and neck are burning a bit. That's good. Can you take 2 toughness, please?
Okay.
So, we move on to Rolnara, who is going to fire her. You know what? These all happen at roughly the same time. I'm going to say that Rolnara's arrow slams into the creature as it's on the floor. Maybe she was just making sure, or maybe she wasn't expecting it to suddenly topple over with one of Ascarai's arrows in its face. We'll go with Vikama next, who is going to dash down another side passage further along. He was the one furthest over. And again, you hear sounds of conflict down there. Kind of, it's the passage further ahead from the one you are, Anton. So there's kind of 3 passages on your side. Urfon's in the one behind you. You're at the middle one, and Vikama is now dashed into the one next along. And then Gadraban Gadraban is kind of just holding himself in a very defensive posture. He's not charging the thing. Maybe he's being timorous, or maybe he just realizes that the thing has to charge through your spear before it can try and engage either of you. So, yes. Yes, John has posted the stuff for ongoing. That's the exact bit that that I read out. So yeah, I think we're good for that. With the no, I realise now why John has posted it. John has posted it because it might break the holy aura. Yes, thank you, John. I was a bit confused, but you've saved the day. So can you give me a resolute roll at -2, please, Anton?
Don't make it. Rolled a 14.
That holy aura is gone. It's fair to say, I mean, you would be distracted if your cheek and your neck started burning with acid, wouldn't you? So that's it. No more help from Prios this combat.
Okay. I'll make a move towards the nearest one.
That would be, well, do you mean kind of down the side passages, or are you going to assume that Vikama is also blocking it in the same way Alphonse is, and move over to the one opposite Stio and Gadraban?
Yeah, maybe move over there then. I don't really fancy delving down one of the side passages myself.
That seems fine. Are you going to dash up to it and engage it, or are you going to join Stio and Gadraban in their kind of informal shield wall there?
I'll sort of join them in that informal shield wall.
Yeah, as you do. As you do. Wow, winding the clock back to the 90s there for everyone. So, it's the turn of the Blightborn. Hey. The only one we really need to talk about, obviously there's combat going on down the side passages, but the only one we really need to talk about is the one facing Stio, Anton, and Gadraban, and it's going to pile itself forward at you. Of course, it's a raging, monstrous beast, which means, Stio, you get that initial free attack with your spear.
Welcome to Spiky Town, dead nerd.
Nice. So what's the damage like on it?
The damage is 4.
The damage is 4. Well, then, sadly, your spear kind of glances over its muscles and just slits it slightly open. But, I mean, it's a very minor cut indeed, as it barrels kind of past the head of the spear, knocks it almost seemingly at random to one side and barrels towards you. And I think it will attack you. I think that's
Tank mission bet. Accomplished. Yeah.
So can you give me a defense roll, please, at a -5?
Oh God.
Oh. Ooh. I'm going to assume that makes it. I'm going to assume your defense is higher than 7.
Yeah.
It comes for you, and it's. Do you think you said tank, right? So let's go with that. It kind of dashes towards you, and you feel the impact of one of its claws against your shoulder, and you feel the armor take it and disperse that pressure along it, and you hear the sound of the sharpened bone embedded in what the kind of horrible remnants of its hand crashing and splintering against it, and you're pretty sure you're gonna have a bruise there tomorrow. These things are strong, horrifically strong, but you stood your ground, and it didn't hurt you more than you could take. And on that note, Stio, it's your attack.
Okay. Can I make an attack on it if it's literally hugging me?
Yeah. You're engaged with it. You can take a couple of steps backwards and thrust, whatever.
Okay.
You can also fight with a spear at close range. You can use the haft of the weapon is a weapon.
Okay, here we go. 4, which is a perfectly serviceable
Absolutely
hit in this situation. Oh my God, 2
please.
damage.
Yeah, again, and you know what? It's because you're so close to it. Let's say that you struggle to get kind of wield your spear around to get a cut in on it, and you just basically circle it a bit, battering at those swiping claws with the haft of the spear. So we roll back to the beginning. We have another round to go, and we can probably finish it out in this round. Askarai, are you going 2 for 2?
Gonna try. I don't think I'm gonna get that luck again. I'm guessing probably the only one I could.
Well, no. If you're firing an arrow, you could definitely try and help the two down the side passages if that's what you wanted.
There are kind of 3 of them on one, so I feel like maybe helping one of the guys who are 1-on-1 is a more.
Sure.
So I'd probably maybe try and help Earthons, shoot the one fighting Earthons.
Absolutely, go for it.
Who knows how he's been doing down that dark tunnel. Okay, no 20s. Okay, I got a 7, so that's a hit. A D10. I got a 1.
Okay. You basically struggle to get a bead on the thing because Earthons is, just a shifting, spinning circle of death down there. And in fact, you're fairly sure that his blade chopped your arrow out of the air as he was taking a strike on the thing. But he seems to be holding his own. You can see that he's definitely kind of wounded on one shoulder, but he's definitely holding it at bay. With that in mind, Relnara, you're not aware. No one is aware of what Relnara is doing. There are sounds of kind of cries of victory coming from the side passage that Vikama is down. Earthon's Ascarai, you see with the last spin, he kind of like comes to a halt and brings his longsword down, sort of from above, from the falcon position, and slices down, and one of the thing's arms comes off in a huge welter of sticky ichor, which Earthons kind of dances back and narrowly avoids being sprayed by, and the thing collapses to the floor dead. Gadraban is going to strike out at the one attacking Steo, and is going to he will hit it. The thing grunts as Gadraban's axe makes contact into its back, but it doesn't. Again, I mean, these things barely seem to register something until it's a killing blow anyway, and it kind of just staggers around and swipes vaguely at him, and then returns back to its striking at Steo. Anton,
I'm gonna flail
away.
Let's have an attempted flail.
I can't believe Chris no-sold that amazing joke I just made.
I make it.
Okay, give me that damage roll, friend.
An expected bonus attack of 5.
Better than the last 3 characters.
You managed to step in around the thing kind of. Well, you know what, actually, it's engaging 2 people at the moment. Do you want to have flanked it? I think that's fair for you to have flanked it.
Yeah, let's go for that.
Get in behind it. So that, I believe, increases damage by a d4. So do you want to roll that d4 for me? Also, was your attack roll 18 or above?
No.
No, that's fine.
My attack roll. No, it was. Christ, can't remember now. But
that's fine. As you, so you kind of move around behind the thing. It's definitely got its attention focused pretty much on Steo. You can see that Gadraban was kind of trying to get around the back of it as well. But as it turns to one side to kind of vaguely swipe out at him, you step in behind it, and with as much power as you can muster, crack your flail across its back. I think we discussed that it's basically just like a stick with like 3 or 4 heavy chains attached to it, and you just whack sharply across its back, and through kind of the amount of vibration that hits your arm, and you can see that you've broken bones in its back with the thrash that you gave it, and it gives out a squealing cry and carries on fighting, because that's what it does. And with that in mind, it's going to strike out at Steo. So give me a defense roll, please, Steo, at -5.
Oh, no.
Oh, no, not this time. Give me an armor roll, please.
That I should have looked that up before failing that roll. I wish I knew that I was going to fail rolls in advance. That's 1d8. It's a 6.
Okay. Also, we've forgotten acid stuff, but let's gloss over that for now for a second. So the creature piles into you with one of its powerful taloned claws, and it hits exactly the same place on that armor, and this time it punches through. Your shoulder guard moves to one side, and you can feel those bone-like talons piercing your flesh, tearing out a lump of it as it comes back. Can you lose 3 toughness, please? Yes. So a couple of things for Anton. So, firstly, now should you roll armor on? Yeah, I think you should. Can you give me an armor roll for the acid that's already on you, please?
2.
Anton. Okay. Take another 1 point of toughness as it continues to bubble away on your face and neck, please. And also, can you give me a standard defense test?
I don't like doing these. No, don't make it. Rolled 16.
Okay, that's fine. I'm not going to apply extra acid to you. I'm just going to refresh the amount of time it lasts. So as you cracked along its back, you felt an extra kind of, more of that goop came off it and landed kind of on your front, your chest, and your shoulder. Yeah. So that's good fun. Steo, your turn.
Okay, I will try once again to have at it with the spear in close combat.
Sure.
Oh no! It's 20.
It's 20. You know what that means. That's a fumbled attack, my friends. A fumbled hit, which means it takes a free attack from the target. But first, before we do that, let's see what your attack does, shall we? Because you still hit.
Oh, do I? Wow.
Yeah, you could not hit it at this point, right?
Oh my god, I did 2 points of damage. This is bad dice night.
It is. Again, it's too close for you to use your spear usefully, and instead you have left yourself within range of its strike. Give me a defense roll. -5, please.
I do not make it at -5.
Okay, then give me an armor roll, please.
4.
Okay.
Respectable.
Yes. Well, yeah. In it basically, as it comes forward towards you, it steps in under the guard of your spear, and you're expecting it to strike you with its claws or kind of bull rush you and body block you. Instead, acting as a boar rather than a man, it gores you.
Ooh.
And one of those sharpened bone tusks embeds itself near where it had pulled the flesh out and impales your shoulder all the way through and tears its way out. Take 5 toughness, please.
Oh.
So I was going to wrap up the combat there, but you know what? Let's. I might still do. Let's find out what happens from here. You know what? I think the creature kind of has charged forward, and its tusk is basically kind of lodged in Steo, and it's roaring in kind of ecstatic pleasure at impaling him and kind of tearing back and tearing out. And as it does so, one arrow sinks into the back of its neck, and Gadraban kind of slams the edge of his shield into its throat. It staggers back with a coughing wheeze, and he takes measure with his hand axe and just flicks it out of his hand. It spins the short few feet in the air, embeds in the thing's chest, and it drops to its knees, gives out a cough, and crashes to the floor. All is well and still.
I disagree.
So the first thing, before we start addressing further acid damage, does Anton want to do something about this stuff bubbling over his flesh?
The permanent corruption that you're talking about here, or the acid?
The acid. Definitely.
Yeah, so I think probably like you said that there was some snow that had sort of drifted down through
Yeah,
like
there's clumps
the
of it
sort of gaps in
around.
the roof. So yeah, like I think I'll try and wash some of it off if possible. Like
I think that's a great idea. You know what? Make a cunning roll for it, but I'm going to give you a significant boost because I think that's a great idea. So why don't you take a +4 to your cunning?
Yes, make it.
Okay. Yeah, you dive for a clump of it and just take great handfuls of it and soak the side of your face and your neck and ears, and it comes away. The snow is kind of oddly bubbling and faintly dark purple, but you think you've got the mass of it off you. Yeah. Vikama strides out of the side passageway, kind of the head of his axe covered in gore, and nods and looks around and says, "Good fight."
Oh, good fight. Oh, Prios's teats.
Steo, come here, let me have a look.
Just patch it up. Oh, God.
Right. Medicus roll. No dice.
No dice. What's your toughness looking like? Does Anton think it's a nasty wound? But what toughness have you got remaining there, Steo?
I'm on 5 toughness remaining.
Okay, so it's up to Anton whether you would consider that worthy of a dash from the
I
bottle.
have seen far worse, and Steo is making it pretty clear that this is like I've been through worse. We can just strap this up.
I mean, Steo can make a roll on it himself.
Yeah, I was going to say, did Steo use his Medicus roll in the end? I don't think that he did. Right?
No.
Yeah, but not on myself.
But it's a successful roll per subject.
Yes. Yeah, I always forget that.
Okay, I'll have a go and see if I can trust myself up. I think that's a success. Cunning, isn't it?
Cunning roll, yeah.
Yes, it is 11. I got an 11.
Okay, so roll a d4 then. That's your healing, right? When you
4.
4. Nice. Yeah, you as Anton said, you brush the priest off and I'll do it. I've seen wounds like this before. Yeah, and kind of strap yourself up. Vikama kind of is bent over and looking at this happening and sort of taps on your shoulder guard with the edge of his axe. Not near enough to actually bash you and hurt, but kind of taps it and goes, "Tough one, this one." He kind of nods at you approvingly.
Vikma's the chunky one, yeah?
Yeah, Vikama is the big. Vikama is the formerly naked Vikama, the guy with the huge battle axe.
You Odev fight like absolute demons. Amazing work.
He looks very pleased with your compliment. As this is going on, obviously Steo and Anton are engaged with this. The scout Relnara has kind of come down to the chamber and walked across and is kind of checking on everyone. And Urfons is among you as well, like looking around. He looks lightly wounded as well, but is mostly taking care of it himself. Askarai, what are you doing?
I probably would have gone to check on Urfons as well. Seeing that he's okay, I maybe would have taken a look in this pit that we.
Sure, absolutely. Let's take a look in the pit. So it's gradual at first and kind of has a rough slope of debris of these large wrecked blocks of white stone leading down towards a pit. And below you can see there's another chamber, not as large as this one, but large enough. And on the floor of it, you can't quite see, there's not too much light, but there seems to be kind of a lot of a pile of things on the floor, unmoving things, inanimate things. But you'll need to get a little bit of light down there to be really sure.
Okay. I think I'd first just kick a rock down there and see if anything starts waking up.
Yeah.
Just in case.
Yeah, you nudge. You go full Peregrine Took and kick a rock. It scatters down the side of the screen to the bottom, and Relnara kind of glances at you with a kind of bold move look on her face. Nothing happens.
Okay, maybe I start lighting a torch.
Anton, I believe, already has one.
Okay.
Lads, we're not in that much of a rush here, gentlemen. Try and beckon Ascarai back from summoning even more ghosty ghoulies. But I would like to check what's on this little piece of paper I got.
Sure. Ascarai, if you want, obviously you can get the Torch of Anton or call him over for it or whatever. Steo, you unfold the parchment that you picked up finally and have a look on it. It is a map. It is a map of southern Davakar, the area where you are now, and the area where you've been for quite some days. And can we have the map of that area of Davakar flashed up, please, John, just for context? It looks very similar to this map, with one very important difference. The Earth Towers of the Black Leech Rift on this map are on the wrong side of the river, the southern side.
Oh, that's spicy information. I'm
not saying they've moved over time or anything. This is an incorrect map.
Oh.
The Black Leech Rift on the map is circled. These people seem to have thought they were at the Black Leech Rift, which is a fairly safe place to go delving for treasure.
They were in this danger hole. I will I think Anton is kind of map and paper man at this point. If he is not taken leave of his senses and gone spelunking after the party took about 50% of its HP damage, I will ask him over and show him the map.
Sure. While you're doing that and conferring over that, Ascarai, you seem to want a torch. Are you maybe taking it off Anton, or?
I will ask Anton for a torch.
It's yours. Take it.
Okay. It's a fairly solid torch. Are you going down there, or? And I just add this as a suggestion. It's not that far a distance. It's maybe 20 feet. You could probably drop it, and it would still be a light.
I think I would drop it down first.
Sure. On the floor of this sunken pit, the first thing you see is a chamber. Like I say, a relatively large chamber, but much smaller than this one. On the far end of it is what appears to be a large circular rock door that has some kind of carvings around it. And on the floor of the chamber, a large pile of things. Some of it's debris, some of it's rock and snow. But among it, you see strikingly a lot of kind of eerily white bones glinting in the light from the torch. You see basically what seems to be the remnants of two individuals. One is a giant, monstrous boar with a huge tusks and a huge skull, the entirely sloughed of flesh. It's been here long enough, it's rotted away completely. The other, a human, dressed in what appears to be the garb of a kind of junior Ambrian nobility, maybe a squire or a hedge knight of some kind. The knight was presumably in some kind of conflict with this giant beast, and you think you can see the story play out in front of you. Between the ribs and up into the chest of the Ambrian knight are the creature's horrific monstrous tusks, but with one outthrust arm, the knight is holding a still glittering Ambrian longsword, piercing through the boar's ribs directly into its heart. And I think we'll end the session there.
Closure after nearly a year.
There we go. John said, just as per usual at the end of these sessions, if anyone has any comments or questions in the chat, throw them in there and we'll pop them up on. John will pop them up on screen for us to talk about. I already seen one for John saying, if I recall correctly, there's still one member unaccounted for from the group. Well counted. For anyone who doesn't know and who doesn't want to go back and watch the prologue, I'll try not to spoiler the prologue too much, but essentially the prologue was played with different characters, was a kind of a one-shot story. Didn't end well for the group, and what we have seen is the aftermath of that prologue, essentially. And correct, one of the party who was present in that prologue, 3 out of the 4, we have seen their bodies. I don't know if everyone registered all 3 of them, but yes.
gonna have to go back and rewatch that now because I can't. I think I remember escaping, but I need to remember that final heroic moment.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of ironic that this is our first session without Elle, right? Because obviously that ending may have been very satisfying. I'll make sure she watches this. But like, Sam's character, I think it's safe to say we found on the floor a bit crushed and a bit corroded. And Mike's character was the one battered against the wall with the crossbow lying there. But what became of Kvarek, the barbarian mercenary played by Chris? We don't know. We didn't know on the day, and we don't know now. So there we go.
In another year, we'll find out.
Yeah, right. That'll be the second coda to it. I hope you guys enjoyed that. That's been a long time planned and coming.
Yeah, cool.
I knew I wanted to take care of it almost in an offhand, non-main plot way. But yeah.
Yeah, closure.
It great.
I also thought it acted as a nice example to you of how far your characters have come from a starting build.
Yeah.
Because those things carved the shit out of you out of those original characters. Admittedly, there was a giant monster boar as well, but like,
certainly wasn't a boring encounter.
Yeah, there we go. That's even better when you realize that monster boars in Symbaroum are called abors. So it wasn't a boring encounter. Yeah. Come for the role play, stay for the humor. So, it happens. You get brine lakes at the bottom of the sea. You do. Yes, I think when I said it, I can't remember if I alluded to it, but I was aware of that.
100%.
But I didn't want it to get confused. Yeah, you get other ones as well, like in like underground caves. You get like and in the Arctic, you get like areas that are separated slightly by temperature and the like the density of the water and stuff. Like, I'm not making any sense, but yes, and it's cool.
Yeah.
Come for the puns, cool. Stay for the geology. Biology. Yes. Thermocleans. Well, absolutely, Steve. Bless you.
Is that the temperature differential thing? Maybe. Either way, brine lakes cool. Underwater lakes of all kinds cool. Session
cool. Not cool.
Yeah. So there we go. I don't think there's any more comments or questions. So thank you for watching, everyone. Thank you to these guys for playing. Obviously, very satisfying to have a nice little coda to our prologue. We played all the way back in September, I want to say. So that was fun. Thank you to John for being the stream manager, as always. We've got a load of links below. We've got social media. We've got YouTube. We've got Patreon. Go to visit them if you want. We have Symbaroum. This happens every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock GMT. If you've enjoyed this, please come check it out again. We also have another series on Tuesday nights at 8 o'clock GMT of Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition. And we run one-shots as well the first Saturday of every month. So our next one is coming up on the 6th of March, I believe. We'll be playing Troika, which is an entertaining, surreal science fantasy indie RPG thing. But last one we played was Alien. The VOD of it is still on Twitch for a couple of days, but it's all in episodic form over on our YouTube as well. That was so much stuff. Thank you for watching, everyone. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.